Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back with Dr. Laura Griffith Garland here today, and she's about to pull a card for us. For those of you who may not know, welcome to the show, Dr. Laura Garland. And I know this is what you do every time to kind of go through spirit, through guides, and she's a healer with her Reiki and so much more. So what's in store for us today?
Well, we're going to go a little heavy today. Sorry.
Perfect.
That's good. I got denial, judgment, and empathy today. So don't know. That's what they had me pull. So that's what we're going to do. But it's been an interesting week because we started with Valentine's Day.
Yes.
So yes. So lots of people had, from what I understand, a lot of people kind of had a decent Valentine's Day, but it might not have been fabulous.
Of course.
I got to go do jury duty on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, I
Exciting.
did not get selected. I've served twice. So,
okay.
So I was happy not to, because I was afraid then we wouldn't get to do this this week. So we're heading into that really tough time for a lot of people, especially in the northern part of the country or northern part latitudes in the world, where spring just doesn't seem to be appearing yet.
True, very true.
Whereas here we already have like moderate tree pollen, and it's forecasted to be high by this weekend. So everybody's like, do I have allergies? Oh no, do I have COVID, or is it allergies?
Yeah.
It's getting there for us. But a little heavier today with denial, judgment, and empathy. Denial. We deny a lot of things. We can deny our feelings about things that can be good or bad. And all of these can be good or bad, depending on how it affects us, how we interpret what's going on. When we deny our feelings, if we're denying happy feelings, then we're denying ourselves that happiness, which isn't good. But if we deny that we have difficult feelings about someone or a situation, and we just keep going on with it and keep going on with it, then that can really suck energy from us. It can hurt us emotionally, hopefully not physically, but if you deny what's going on enough, that might be the case. It can be devastating in some ways, especially if you deny it for a long period of time. I just had someone who has denied for 50 years that their parent was not a nice guy, that their father he wasn't a nice guy. He has told them their entire life that he was a nice guy, and he wasn't. And it created 2 months worth of just like an incredible angst where everything was seen as the sky was falling, essentially, because their entire paradigm had to shift, because they had been in denial of this for 50 years.
Yep.
And so that was tough. And what it led to was a denial of themselves. They were literally denying themselves because they had this lens of, my childhood was wonderful, because that's what they were told, when in fact, it wasn't hideous, but it wasn't wonderful. So their entire personality had been shaped by it. So they had been denying themselves the ability to go out and do a lot of things because of this. We have denying reality, just plain denial of reality. We've kind of got that going on in the country for a while. We had. I think it's still kind of there, where there's two completely separate paths that people are taking, and that at some point, consensual reality will end up smacking people in the face, and it doesn't usually look pretty when that happens. And I've seen that recently with a client, and it creates so much angst.
Yeah.
But denying other people's reality also can be a problem, because if that's how they see the world and that's how they view it, then it makes it very difficult to communicate. Super difficult to communicate. Denial of people's beliefs, denial of your own limitations. And that can get you in trouble, especially when we're younger. We tend to deny our limitations.
Yeah.
And then we can end up in situations that aren't so great sometimes, because there's that whole feeling of being invincible when we're younger. But then denying lack of limitations. When we get older, we impose all these little boxes on ourselves, and the boxes that we impose, these limitations that we impose, may not be real at all. They may not be there at all. And so there's a lack of limitation, but we've put ourselves in these little tiny boxes, and it keeps you from growing. It keeps you from experiencing life. We kind of all got put in an artificial box with COVID when things closed down. So and we didn't have a lot of choice on that in a lot of places in the country. And so that was difficult. And now I was actually got to see some friends in person this past weekend. Oh my God. And we were all talking about how now we have some weird limitations when we go out in public, like literally do not want people to stand within 6 feet of us, and don't want to interact with anyone in public. And this is a new limitation that we've put on, where it's going to be much tougher. I know for me, it's much tougher now for me to probably meet people in public. It's just, I'm an introvert, and I had eased myself closer to that midline between introvert and extrovert, but COVID has pulled me back. And I know a lot of introverts who have pulled way back.
Yeah.
And so, but this is a self-imposed limitation. It's a self-imposed limitation, and we're denying ourselves the ability to interact with people. And so that's the limitation is not real. And so we're denying that interaction, that ability to interact. And hopefully, fingers crossed, as we come out of this, hopefully those of us who have shifted it more introvert will be able to start to pull ourselves back a little bit more toward the center line. It's not that being introvert is bad, but being way too introvert also is a denial of the human need to interact, because humans do need to interact. Even those people who go and do become real hermits, they usually have some sort of system set up so that they do interact with people periodically, whether it's to get groceries or healthcare or whatever. So there are people who go really super introverted, but those are really, really, really few and far and in between there. What else do we deny? We deny our blocks. It's kind of like limitations, but these are things that we may have been put in place when we were a kid. So they're a tape that we play in our head, and we don't even realize we're doing it often. And those are harder to work on. You usually need someone outside of the situation to talk to you about it, whether it be a mental health professional if you have diagnosable something that's fairly serious, or whether you work with a coach or even just a friend. But if the friend is too close, then you know, you may step outside and go with a coach who can help you see where you're blocking yourself, where you don't even realize it at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's denial of responsibility. Ooh.
Being accountable. Yep.
Of what we've done, of how we've acted. That one's, you know, that one can be really tough. That one can be really tough to own up to things that we've done. I don't think anyone likes it. It's kind of like wearing masks.
Yeah.
No one likes it. But to clear and have yourself feel good about yourself, actually, you do have to own up to what you've done. You do have to take responsibility for how you've acted. And then there's maybe a final denial, probably not a final, we could go on forever. Denial of responsibility of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the whole law of attraction component. Where we are right now, what we're doing, how our world is interacting with us is a consequence of what we've done, how we've acted, how we've thought, what we've put out into the world. And so, and this one can be really tough if if your situation isn't fabulous, if you're not, you know, with the absolute love of your life, and you don't have financial freedom, and you don't have the job that you love perfectly, and if you don't have all of those things lined up for yourself, if your spirituality is not where you want it, realizing that it's not external, it's actually internal that got you where you are. And that one's so tough sometimes, so tough. But you can turn it around. It is possible to turn all of this around. And it actually has a lot to do with judgment, which is the second card I pulled. We judge ourselves a lot. Unless you're a serious narcissist, we judge ourselves. The narcissistic personality does not lend itself to really a lot of self-reflection. But the rest of us, and probably most of the people listening to this, judge yourself. And we do it for several reasons. We do it out of fear. We do it out of previous pain. We do it from our upbringing. There's mom or dad or aunt or grandma or teacher or principal or coach, or somebody said something, or the mean girls when you were in junior high, middle school, said something, and you've glommed onto that, and you judge yourself by that all the time. A lot of women judge themselves on how they look because it's part of our culture. And if you don't meet a certain criteria, you think you're not good enough, quote unquote. And that's truthfully a denial of reality, because quote unquote, whatever that criteria is, probably isn't real. A lot of times, a lot of the images that we see have been photoshopped.
Right. By the way,
Um,
Brooke Shields just came out with her People magazine debut, and she made sure that they did not retouch anything. She wants to show her body at 56, I think. I mean,
right.
like, good for her. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And thank gosh, because growing up, I remember Brooke Shields. Yeah, she's just a tad older than I am. So just a couple of years. And she was there, and there was this expectation, and I don't look like Brooke Shields.
Uh-huh.
so, um, uh, and so a lot of people don't look that way. So we judge ourselves and are denying the reality of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard to bring anything better in because we keep having this weird duality of images of we're horrible and we're supposed to look like this.
Yeah.
And we're never going to look like that because that's just not our genetics.
Mm-hmm.
It does not mean that you should not work to improve. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Being healthy is super important. And if you have physical health conditions that could be improved by eating better, sleeping better, drinking more water, exercising more, if you have physical health conditions that need that, then that's important.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that if you're a woman, you're going to end up a size 0. It may not happen. I can never be a size 0. My hip bones are not that tiny, and neither are my shoulders. Just never going to happen.
Yeah.
If you're a guy, see, guys want to go the other way often. They want to be a lot more muscular.
Bigger. Yes.
Yeah, So I remember my husband in his 30s, he started working out a lot more, and then gained quite a bit of muscle, and actually is a pretty big guy, because he's 6 foot and 225, and he's a pretty big guy. But for the longest time, he still pictured himself as this sophomore in high school when he had just gained his height. So he was just about 6 foot, but I think he weighed like 150 or something like that, because he's a sophomore in high school. So he kept seeing that image. So guys do this too. They'll judge themselves and deny what the reality is. And finally it kind of took his brother being like, dude, you're not tiny. You can almost take me now. Now his brother is 6'4" and even larger, but I mean, but it kind of took that reality so that he wasn't always thinking that he was still this skinny dude. And there's a lot of guys out there who like think that they need to be a heck of a lot more muscular, especially since Hollywood now, all of the leading men are, personal trainers are really buff. Not the way it was back in the 80s. No. If you look at shows and movies from the 80s, the guys look like guys. It was the women who had the particular shape, but the guys were just guys. And now Hollywood guys are not just guys anymore. So it's now also guys who have an issue with where they are and how they have to be. And that judgment can start with the external, and then it gets internalized really fast until I'm this awful person because my external doesn't match what is quote unquote expected. And the quote unquote expected is just stupid because it's not reality. Again, it's not reality because they Photoshop guys in Hollywood too.
They give them those abs. Yes.
Yes.
They do.
Giving them a 6-pack of abs, and their waist comes in narrower and their shoulders suddenly get wider. And I remember seeing an interview with one of the guys. It's like, my neck is not that big, the guy saying, because they like make their neck look bigger. And I'm like, okay. So they're doing it to that too, but we make judgments of others too. And that's out of fear. A lot of times it's out of fear. Fear that we're not, quote unquote, as good as they are somehow. And that again puts us into this whole cycle of not being able to hold the good intention for ourselves to move forward, because we keep having these judgment thoughts, judgment about ourselves, judgment about others, and it starts to revolve around fear, and it just makes it so difficult to move forward. And this is where then empathy can come in, because if it's judging others, then by being empathic, you can see their side, see their point of view, see who they are, really feel, embody who they are. And this can be really important, especially if your upbringing was in a very judgmental way, where you were taught to judge others a lot. Whether it be a group or particular groups or particular types of people or particular looks or whatever the heck it was. But by opening your heart to empathy, you can understand that they're just people. Everybody's just people. They're just people. Now, is everybody as nice people as other people? No, there's some people who aren't so nice people. Do you have to like everybody? No, you don't have to like everybody. Do you have to associate and hang out with everybody? No, you don't have to. That's not required. But if you're experiencing and having to interact with someone who you find yourself judging, try to open the heart and feel into what that other person is. What you may suddenly feel is, oh, this other person's a narcissist. Okay, I don't need to hang out with that. Or you may feel into, oh, wow, this person had a really horrible upbringing, and so they just don't understand things. And then you can feel that they had that, and then you can still excuse yourself from having to deal with them if you can. But sometimes it's close family and you can't get away from them. So, you still have empathy, which is different than sympathy, by the way. Empathy is feeling into what they're feeling and understanding them. You don't have to agree. You just understand. Sympathy is saying, I'm sorry for your whatever. Sympathy actually makes the other person usually feel worse. Empathy brings you two together.
Because you can really relate and understand.
Yeah. Sympathy is like going front to front here. Empathy is side to side. If you want to visualize it. So, and empathy, again, can open communication. Sympathy can shut it down. Sometimes people want sympathy, and that's okay. But if you're having to work with someone and it's difficult, go for empathy, not sympathy. Now, what if the empathy is too much, though? Because we have some people out there who are very strong empaths. They feel everything. They tend to be less judgmental, but they feel everything. And it can be overly dramatic. It can be over the top. It can be too much. It can be just way, way, way too much. And those people can be in denial of how much the empathy is controlling them, because they're being controlled by their empathy, not controlling it. So they're feeling all of this stuff with people around them, and their behavior and emotions can get caught up in all of this. So they're continually caught up in everybody else's drama. And that it can make it very difficult to live your own life.
Mm-hmm.
Super difficult to live your own life when you're constantly caught up in somebody else's drama. And you may not even realize it. Some of the people who are very empathic don't even realize that what they're doing is they're feeling other people's stuff, and it's not them. So suddenly they can be really upset and really depressed. And then they're sitting there and they're like, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm so upset. And somebody asks them, why are you depressed?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, wait, you don't know?
Well, wait.
Well, did something happen? No. Did you feel something? No. Did you think about something? No. Well, why are you depressed?
Well, why?
I don't know. And what it may be is you're experiencing people near you who are very upset, and you've attached onto it, and you've sucked it into yourself, and now you've shifted your emotions to match that. And there are people out there who do that, and they don't really realize it. This can happen with anger too. You can suddenly be super angry and be like, and somebody asks you why you're angry, and you're like, I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Now sometimes you may not know why you're upset or angry if say you're a woman with hormonal shifts going on. Happens.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still menstruating, that can happen once a month. If you're in menopause, that can just happen randomly. No, trust me, been there.
Got it.
I've had emotional shifts that were not outside myself, but at the same time, I didn't know what was going on. So that can happen. And guys do have a cycle too, by the way. It seems to be much more like 3 months rather than a woman's 1 month. So they can have down periods where they're not really sure why they're down. But if you cannot pinpoint something within yourself, and you cannot say, no, wait, it must be hormones, or I'm hungry, by the way, that's a big one. So do be careful with crashing blood sugar. You can get angry, hangry, or you can get really depressed. The sky is falling. I know people who do both. I know people who get hangry, and I know people who suddenly the sky is falling because they're really hungry. So if you can't hormones, it isn't hunger, then see if it is something outside of you, and if you can shift yourself. Because if you're denying that you're picking up on other people's stuff, and you keep having these really wacky emotional swings, you may suddenly think you're bipolar. You're not. You're just super sensitive and have to learn to block and let it go and not get sucked into everybody's drama. You don't have to get sucked into everybody's drama. It's not required.
Perfectly said.
And a lot of times it's really better not to. So let's not deny ourselves. Let's not judge ourselves or others. And empathy is good in a moderate amount. Too much, and we start getting sucked into other things, and our emotions go wacky. So we don't want to be controlled by it. We want to control it. So that's kind of that's a little deep for today, but
No, I love it. Thank you. Dr. Garland, how do we contact you?
You can contact me by email at drlaura.coach. So that's drlaura.coach@gmail.com, or phone 843-259-8349. Go to the website, charlestonreikiandtarot.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, sweetheart. Always a pleasure. Have a great day, hon. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.